St. Peter's Square, the Vatican City, the world's smallest country and the heart of the Catholic faith. Beyond that, St. Peter's Basilica, headquarters of the highest seat of power in Catholicism, the Papal Throne. Amongst the long list of names of popes past that have ruled for nearly the last 2,000 years, during my summer 2015 journey to Italy, two names in particular struck my interest for today's piece. I'll briefly talk about their contributions, their final resting places, and a rivalry between two men that span both their religious careers and beyond. Pope Alexander VI, Spanish-born Rodrigo Borgia. He's remembered as probably the most infamous Renaissance pope and one of the most infamous yet influential figures in history. Alexander's probably less remembered for having introduced famous artists like Raphael and Michelangelo to Rome. His rival, Pope Julius II, Genoa-born Giuliano della Rovere. Pope Alexander and Pope Julius had been locking horns on issues of morality, values, religious policies, and law since they were both in the Sacred College of Cardinals. It was Pope Julius that commissioned Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and the institution of the Swiss Guard to protect the Papal State, a role they still hold today in 2016. When Pope Julius succeeded to the papal throne in 1503, shortly after the death of Alexander, he's remembered for having said on the day of his election, "I will not live in the same room as the Borgias lived. He desecrated the Holy Church as done before. He usurped the papal power by the devil's aid, and I forbid under pain of excommunication anyone to speak or think of Borgia again. His name and memory must be forgotten. It must be crossed out of every document and memorial. His reign must be obliterated. All paintings made of the Borgias or for them must be covered over with black crape. All the tombs of the Borgias must be opened and their bodies sent back to where they belong, to Spain." Now, while Julius did seal the Borgia apartments in the Vatican, and they remained sealed for nearly 400 years, he was never able to realize the dream of banishing the Borgia Pope in his lifetime. In 1610, nearly 100 years after Julius's death, it was then that Alexander's body was moved here, to the other side of the Tiber River. Enter Santa Maria in Monserrato, the National Church of Spain in Rome. It's here that Alexander VI finally found his resting place, interred along with his uncle, Pope Calixtus III. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go inside and lay my eyes on the tomb of the two Borgia popes myself. As I approached, I noticed a note on the door that read, "Durante el mes de agosto la Iglesia Nacional Española de Santiago y Montserrat permanecerá cerrada para la visita y la oración." Just in case you didn't catch all that, this roughly translates out to say that during the month of August, the Spanish National Church of Santiago and Montserrat will remain closed for the visit and prayer. It came as a bitter disappointment not to be able to go inside, but I was still grateful for having been able to make the journey and have gotten close to one of history's most infamous figures. And now concerning the fate of Julius II. We come here, just down the road from the Roman Colosseum. The next leg of our journey brings us to San Pietro in Vincoli, St. Peter in Chains, Although it looks a bit rectangular from the outside, it opens up into a modest but beautiful basilica on the inside. The church is so named after these, the chains of St. Peter, the first pope himself. Supposedly, these are the chains that held the first pontiff while he was in bondage in Jerusalem. However, the real reason we've come here is for this: Michelangelo's Moses. Prior to his death, Julius II commissioned Michelangelo to build him a grand tomb. In addition to the statue of the biblical Moses seated at the bottom, there was to be a massive likeness of Julius enthroned top and center of the statue, and the entire piece was meant to sit at the altar of St. Peter's Basilica. Unfortunately for Julius, Michelangelo never finished the statue, and the project was abandoned, replaced to San Pietro in Vincoli. As if to add insult to injury, due to a mistranslation of the words crown and horns, Moses ended up with this pointy pair up on top of his head. And for €1 you can light up the whole display via the floodlights installed opposite the statue. And just in case you missed it in that last roving shot, yeah, that's Pope Julius, all cozied up top and center. Pope Julius is actually supposed to be buried in St. Peter's Basilica. He has a tomb near the altar that he shares with his own uncle, Pope Sixtus IV. However, after doing some research and speaking with the staff here in St. Peter's, it seems that between the sack of Rome and the destruction of the old St. Peter's, the contents of many of the tombs are debatable, Julius II's included. It seems a bit of an ironic end for a man willing to exhume and banish the remains of someone already dead. Well, with that, our journey for today comes to a close. I hope you've enjoyed this brief glimpse into history and a little bit of my trip, and that you'll join me for the next installment. I'll see you guys next time. I really hope you guys love this short piece. The quote I used from Pope Julius can be found in a really awesome book called The Sex Life of the Popes by Nigel Cawthorne. It's an interesting read if you're into history. I posted a link to it as well as a link to the website where you can see more videos and a big gallery of my photography. Till next time.